Hello, this is Dr. Grafton, and I'm going to go through a slide presentation here that I normally do in my on-ground classes. It's a brief overview of the Capstone simulation, and it's a slide presentation that is provided by the Capstone company. So why do we simulate? In my first career was as an Air Force officer, and we did a lot of simulations. People had flight simulators, and they're put you in situations that might be less expensive, less riskful, being able to do things that you can learn from without the expense of you know crashing an airplane into the ground, for lack of a better way of explaining it. So what we see here is we do simulations because they're pretty much risk free. We can look at different strategies. In the Capstone simulation, we're going to be looking at least six different strategies. We can be selective. We can integrate. Uh, we can. It can be enjoyable. It's competitive, and we can compress time to view a long-term outcome. In fact, in our simulation, each round will be simulating a year. So the objectives of the Capstone simulation then is we want to be able to look at the effectiveness of multidisciplinary teams working together. So you're going to be working in a team of 2 to 3 people running a company. We're going to be able to look at some strategic thinking, take away some practical skills we've learned in our business management courses. We can test your business acumen from the courses you've taken here at Southern Nazarene University. You will be drawing on all the different courses that you've taken over the course of your MBA program. We can also help understand interactions and the impacts of various parts of the business on one another, and help grow awareness of competition, because in the business world you are competing with other businesses. So let's look at the industry overview. Basically, what the simulation starting is we had a single corporation named Sensors Inc. And they sold sensors as the main product, and the corporation was shut down because of monopolistic operations behavior. So they created six different corporations: Andrews, Baldwin, Chester, Digby, Erie, and Ferris. For those that might remember, this kind of reminded me what happened to AT&T about 30 years ago. The big bell companies were broke down into little baby bells. What our job is then is you're going to operate one of these companies, you and your team, and make it successful. So to start, we're going to have 2 different rounds. We're going to have practice rounds, and we're going to have a competition round. And both of them start with the same scenario. Each company will start with 100 million in sales. There'll be 5 product lines, 5 market segments, and you're going to be operating in a closed market. So basically, your only competitors are the other companies that were spun off from Sensors Inc. So basically, a sensor, these are OEM, original equipment manufacturer sensors for their products to work. Uh, I like to do a comparison like my Toyota Avalon has a backup sensor. If I'm, starts beeping at me if somebody walks behind the car while I'm backing up. Okay. So there's many different things we can use sensors for, uh, and there's a lot of diverse applications for it. We're going to see customer demands vary between 5 segments. So there's 5 market segments. You've got low end, traditional, high end, performance, and size. We're going to look at the marketplace and how these segments work. We're going to be using what's called perceptual maps. These are used to track changes in customer demands in size and performance. So the 2 measurements we're seeing here. So on the vertical axis, we have size. On the horizontal axis, we have performance. As we go in and make our decisions, you're going to see these bubbles move down. Now you can see each ring there has a particular market segment, and the little dots in those rings then are showing you where your particular product might be in that market segment. And so by changing size and performance, then you're going to see these start to drift. Okay. And you notice in this particular example, the drift is toward the lower right, basically the expectation of faster and smaller products. Let's go through each of the different characteristics of these uh, market segments. So low end consumer characteristics, These are price sensitive. They prefer prices at the lowest possible. The reliability then, MTBF means mean time between failure. These are in hours, so it's between 12,000 and 17,000 hours. They want it to be moderately reliable, but not so much that they drive the price up. The age of the product, they want it to be around, so they don't want to have to be doing beta testing on it. So they want some maturity to that product. In this case, the average age is about 7 years. So basically, the positioning then, it's a bigger size and lower performance. It doesn't have to be the cutting edge technology. The traditional consumer characteristics then, this is average performance and size. They just want an average sensor. You'll see on the perpetual map there where it's kind of circled in the center. Uh, Price sensitivity, they're willing to spend a little bit more than the low end, so they still want a less expensive product. The mean time between failure has gone up some. They want it to be fairly reliable, but again, not enough to drive the prices up. And they want to, at least a couple of years of maturity on the product, so they don't have to do any beta testing with it. The high-end consumer characteristics, then, this is the high performance and small size. You'll notice where that's at on the perpetual map down the lower right-hand corner. So that's they only want the most cutting edge production will satisfy me. Price is not an issue. They want the best sensor on the market. The mean time between failure, our reliability is very high. They want it to be very reliable. And the ideal age is they want the newest sensor that you have to be able to put it there. The performance consumer characteristics, then, this is a high performance, small size. They want the highest performance. They're willing to pay for what they need. The reliability is important. They want it to be high. And the average age is about a year, so they like to have the new technology. And again, you can see where the circle is on the perpetual map there. The size then is the consumer characteristics for it is they want it small. Okay, they're willing to pay for what they need. They want fairly reliable sensors, and they prefer new technology. So the average age is about a year and a half. So we're going to look at segment growth then. According to market analysts, there will be continuous growth in the sensor market. So the entire market growth is around 14 to 15% per year. The high-tech market alone will be growing about 20% per year. So your goal then is prepare your company's product to meet the needs of that growing market. The decision-making process, this is where you're going to collaborate with your team members. There's basically 6 basic strategies. Um, they're listed in Canvas, so you can go in and look at them and see what the details are on them. I'll cover a little bit as I go through on this presentation. These are starting points. So you make sure you have a place to start for your decision. Each strategy is proven to work. I've been doing this course for a little over 5 years, and I've seen each one of these strategies work for the particular teams that choose them. If you're not doing well, then you might be doing the strategy wrong. The key thing is to have a strategy and to stick with your strategy. There are guides in the Canvas with the different strategies. Uh, they're there to give you like the first 3 rounds for decision making. You can use it for that, or you can just use it for guidance. If you pick one of these, and of course the PDFs that are in Canvas will actually have a company name next to it. That doesn't mean that you need to use that for your company. So if you're Andrew and Andrew's the broad cost leader, you don't have to pick that strategy. Having said that, though, if you do pick a strategy uh, that's being run by another company, you can watch and see how that strategy is going because basically you're competing against them with that strategy. So it depends on how many uh, segments we have, how many teams we have to have the 6 different companies. We'll see uh, 2 or 3 probably companies for the course. For a small class, for a larger class, I've seen where we've actually used all 6 of them. Okay, so these are 6 basic strategies. The cost leader with product lifecycle focus concentrates on the high-end traditional, low-end segments. Their products a lifecycle approach. The example for this is using the Andrew Company. Differentiation with product lifecycle focus, the concentrations on high-end traditional and low-end segments. Product lifecycle approach, price above average. That's the Baldwin in the examples in Canvas. The broad cost leaders maintaining a presence in every segment. price below average, that's Chester. Raw differentiation, maintaining a presence in every segment, price above average, that's Digby. Niche cost leader, concentrating on traditional and low end segments, is price below average, that's Erie. And the niche differentiation, this is focusing on high technology segments, high end performance and size, and prices above Ferris. So again, just because there's a name next to it doesn't mean that that's what your company has to run. But having said that, if you say you're Andrews and you want to be a niche cost leader, and you can watch, the computer will be running Erie if it's a small group. You can see what they're doing because basically that's who you're going to be comparing against as you go through the simulation. Let's talk about the different departments. As you go through the Capstone tutorials, you'll learn more about these. Just kind of want to give you a heads up as we're going through. You're going to need to coordinate the strategies and tactics across all of these areas. So the first one you'll see is research and development, then marketing, then production, then finance. We will be using HR, TQM, and advanced marketing as we go through the simulation. Uh, I think we'll get to, uh, we won't be doing the labor negotiation segment, and you won't see them until they'll phase in. So they won't be like in round one. They'll be like round two, round three, and like round four. I think in the practice simulation, you're going to see uh, the three that we're going to use because we're going to go through at least 4 rounds. So R&D, then what we're going to do there is we're going to ensure the perceived age of the product meets customer demands. And we're going to build the quality and uh, reliability of the products. It's our MTBF. We're going to invent new products to address the changing marketplace and take advantage of these new opportunities. And we're going to determine the specifications of the products to meet customer expectations. So if part of your strategy is to have a new product, you need to put it in R&D the year before you're going to need it. R&T's main goals then is to adjust products attributes to meet the customer's buying criteria. You can see we've already talked about the buying criteria earlier, but you're going to see them again as we do the Capstone Couriers reports after each round. So you go into decisions, pick R&D. The things that you can change in there is size, performance, and mean time between failure. When you make those changes, you're going to see the age of the product. You're going to see revision dates, when they'll be available for sale, and you'll see R&D and material costs. You need to watch that revision date because if you increase uh, size and performance, or you might put that revision date outside of the time that you might want it. Okay. You also want to make sure if you're going to enter a new product, you need to enter it before you're going to need it in the next year. And what we ask you to do is uh, use the first letter. So if you're Andrew, your new product name should be begin with an A. If you're Baldwin, then your product name should begin with a B. If you're Chester, and so forth. So just remember that naming convention. We also need to be able to look at purchasing capacity and automation in the production page, but by this year, then you'll use it in the following year. In marketing, you want to set the prices of your products, uh, build a customer awareness through investing in promotions, establishing a sales force and distribution channels, set the sales forecast for your products, and set your credit policies, your accounts receivable and your accounts payable. Okay. And again, pay attention as you go through the tutorials to learn how these different things are going to affect that. Basically, when you're setting the price of your products and how much you're going to forecast to sell it, that's going to impact your budget later on because that's where you're going to get your dollars to make your budget when you're starting to make financial decisions. So basically, our main goal is to create the price, promotional budget, sales budget, and sales forecast for each product. So you can go through the steps, go into marketing, enter a price, enter a promotional budget, enter your sales forecast, enter your credit policies. Some of the tools use the segment analysis located in the Capstone Courier. There's a price range that's given in the customer buying criteria for that market segment that you're in. Your promotional budgets then affects customer awareness, and you can use the student guide as your personal strategy to create that budget. Sales budget again, this affects your customer accessibility, and then you can use the student guide and your personal strategy to build that. And you can look at forecasting, accounts receivable, accounts payable. When you're doing your tutorials, pay attention to where you can go back and look at that. In production, then, you're purchasing machinery to automate them in your facilities. You buy or sell capacity on your product line. You're going to have initially more capacity than you need. So you need to start thinking about selling some capacity early and using that money for other things that you might need, maybe automation or something like that. The simulation won't let you enter more um, into how you're going to build if you don't have the capacity to build it with. You can also look at your production schedule where you can work more than one shift. And so if you're working two shifts, there's a way of getting more production out of that. You want to be able to manage the majority of your company's fixed assets. And of course, you want to make sure you're staffing your facility with workers to be able to do that. So basically, in production, you need to determine your schedule, your capacity, and your automation for each product. Uh, the steps that you go through then, enter your product schedule, production schedule. You can buy or sell capacity by making a positive or a negative number. Again, you're going to have more capacity than you need to begin with, so you might want to look at that as you go through. Uh, you can add automation in there, and you can actually, for a new product, make sure if you're creating a new product that there's going to be capacity for it in your production line as you go through. In order for a new product, in order to produce a new product, capacity must be purchased up front. So if you're selling capacity from one market segment, you can use that to buy capacity in another one if you're trying to do that. To discontinue a product, sell all the capacity. If there's inventory, at least one, then you can uh, add or subtract capacity to that. Usually, it's not going to let you uh, build anything new if